Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to look at saving a photo that you take using the camera. So my motivation here is that I want to have some code which I can integrate into my NoteSquirrel application that I've been working on, and that application should allow the user to take a photo which is then used as the application's kind of starting screen. So with that in mind, I don't want to necessarily add my photo to the picture gallery. I just want to save it somewhere on the disk so that I can use it in my application when it starts up. And the code that I'm going to show you is going to add the photo to the gallery, and it's also going to save it somewhere on the disk. And actually, there are a lot of issues and problems surrounding taking and saving photos, and we'll take a look at those a little bit after this tutorial. But the tutorial that I'm going to show you here will work on the majority of phones, I believe, and in fact it's almost identical to the solution to this problem, which you can find if you search for something like taking a photo Android, and you look at the developer.android.com page. You can find here this Taking Photos Simply guide walks you through the whole process that I'm about to explain to you, except that they do it a little bit differently, just because they're trying to save the image with a different name every time. And here, all I want to do is save the image with the same name every time so that my application can use it. So I've got this application that I created in the last tutorial, and the only difference that I've made to it since the last tutorial is I've moved this button, take a photo, the snap button, to the bottom here, and I've put a image view here which I can use for displaying the photo after it's taken, and apart from that it's the same application. So now what I need to do here is firstly I need to tell this intent, the action image capture intent, where to save the photo that it takes. And to do that, I'm going to create a file name which will be the file name of where I want to save the photo. And the first thing to do here is find out a good location to save the photo to. So I'm going to have a file object here which I'll call, let's call it pictures directory. And I'm going to set that equal to, and now I'm going to get the I'm going to get my Android to tell me where pictures are saved by default on the external, the micro SD card that goes in the phone for saving stuff. So I'm going to save to external storage here, because internal storage is often pretty limited on phones. And in fact, I'm not even sure if my phone will let me take pictures without external storage being present. So let's assume that there is an SD card in the phone, and I'm going to say here environment dot, and let's see if I can invoke the autocomplete. Here we go. Get external public directory, and for the type here, let's just maximize this editor screen. I'm going to pass environment dot, and I keep getting this code completion error, which is quite annoying, but never mind, and directory pictures. And now this I think this constant directory pictures was present from API level 8 onwards. So and I'm targeting this application for API level I don't know what, 14 or something, but I'm saying that it works in my manifest with API level 10. So this should be present, and for earlier versions of Android, here I believe you could specify pictures and / and pictures with a capital P, just a string instead of this. But I use this on, you can use this on any kind of fairly recent version of Android. And now I'm going to create a file which will be the actual file that I store in this directory, and I'm going to store that in a private instance variable. So I'll say private file, image file, like that, and here I'll say that image file equals new file, and I'll pass this pictures directory here. and I'll pass the name of the file that I want to save to, and I'll call this, let's call it PassPoints image, with my other application in mind here. So I could make this something, I think the camera saves as .jpeg, but I'm not sure. So you could say like something or other .jpeg, and if you want this will overwrite this image every time, and if you want to save a different image every time, you could do something like getting the date and using that for the name of the image. And you can find that kind of thing on the developer.android.com site in the taking a photo page. But for this application, I just want the same name every time. Now I need to pass that to this intent, this image capturing intent, to tell it to save to this directory and this name. And to do that, I say intent.putExtra, and for the name I say media store out.extra, I think it is, extra output is in here somewhere, extra output, there we go. That's the key, media store.extra output, and the value is going to be the URI, which I think stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, the URI of the file. So I need to say here URI, I'll use the static method of the URI class, and I'll say from file and pass it my image file. Now if you run this code on your phone, and if you then set the phone to kind of external hard drive mode and you browse it in Windows Explorer, once you've taken a photo and click the tick to say you want to keep the photo, you should see this file in the pictures directory on your SD card. So this should already work. But now we can tackle the second half, which is reading this file and displaying it in the image view control. So I'm going to override here, right click and go to source, override, implement methods, and I'm going to override the on activity, I always forget the name of it, but on activity result method. Here we go. And I think to actually get this to run, you need to supply a return code here. I don't think this will actually work without a return code, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to say here private int, private, let's say private static final int photo taken. It doesn't have to be static, but it may as well be, because I only want one copy of it, not one for each object. And I'll set that equal arbitrarily to 0, that doesn't matter. And then I'll say start activity for result, and I pass that my intent, which I've called I, so let's type I here, and then I pass it some kind of code for it to return to this on activity result here. And then in on activity result I can say if request code equals photo taken. So as we've seen in the previous tutorial, this is just a way of identifying which intent you're returning from in this method. And for this application it doesn't matter, because I'm only going to have one intent that I'm starting, but in a larger application, and I'm going to integrate this code into my Note Squirrel application later, then you want to check that the code you have here matches what you have here, or you want to take a different action depending on which intent, which activity you're returning from. Yeah, I need double equals there as well. Okay, so so now it's fairly plain sailing. I've got my file, which should be saved, image file here, and I can now read the bitmap from that file. And to do that, I'm going to say bitmap factory dot decode file, and I'm going to pass it my image file dot get absolute path to get the complete path to the file. And this bitmap factory.decode file returns a bitmap object. So I can say bitmap photo equals. Now, by the way, I wrote some code when I was testing this where I said if image file.exists, do something, otherwise do something else. and .exist didn't seem to work, and I don't know why not. So my recommendation is just try to decode the file, and this will return null if it doesn't work. So here I can say if photo is not equal to null, then we can go ahead and set it in the image view. Else if it is null. Now I'll talk about the issues with this code in a minute, and what you could do is if this returns null, you could try one or more alternative implementations to get this bitmap. But I'll leave this here because I believe this code, as I say, is similar to what Google itself tells you to do, and I believe this code will work on the vast majority of phones. So if, in this case, if I can't read the file, I'm just going to say toast.makeText this unable to read photo file, or we could say from the user's perspective unable to save photo file or something like that, although it probably has saved in their gallery at this point. And I'll say toast.length long here to make sure they definitely see it, and .show to show the toast like this. And let's just extract this into an ID, which is good practice. So I'm going to right click and go to quick fix and extract string, and I'll make the ID of the string unable to save photo file, and just click OK there. So now we've added that string to strings.xml so that we have all the user viewable strings in one place, which is good practice. And now, so let's go ahead and read the file. Well, we've read the file. Let's go ahead and set the image view to use it. So I'll say here image view, let's call it, equals image view, and you know the drill by now. So I say find view by ID, and I specify the r.id here, which is view, and here we go. And it's view because that's what I called it. If I show you my new layout here, so I'll go to res and layout and activity main here, then you can see I've added this image view with the ID view here. So that's why I'm finding it by that ID. And now the final step, well, almost the final step, although we have one more important thing left to do after this, is I'll say image view.set set image bitmap. There we go. And I set that to the photo that I've read in using bitmapfactory.decode file. Now this code won't work because you have to request the right permission in your application, and your application will tell the user what permissions it requests when it installs, and you want to request as few permissions as possible because a lot of permissions will potentially deter the user from installing your application. But here we absolutely need a permission in order to be able to read and write the SD card. And in fact, since the camera activity already has permission to write to the SD card, this would actually save the file. But the problem would be that we couldn't actually read the file here because this application, this activity, doesn't yet have permission to read that file. So I'll go to Android Manifest, go to the permission section here, click Add, go to Users Permission, and here I'll scroll down and I'll select Android.permission.write write external storage. There we go, and I'll save that. And if you look at the raw XML now, then you can see it's added this users-permission with the name Android.permission.write external storage, and you can add that by hand if you prefer, of course. So now I think this application should work. So let's have a look at it, and I'm going to run this. Let's click run, and my phone is plugged in and ready to receive it, hopefully. And let's actually go to the right console here so we can see what's happening. Okay, it's now 20 seconds or so later, and I can see the application running on my phone, and let me show you. Here it is, and I'm just gonna click take a photo, and here we go. Here you can see a rather attractive picture of my light and a fan and the microphone that I'm recording with. So I'm just going to click the snap button there, and I'm going to click the tick button here to say that I'm okay with this and I want to save it. And now you can see the photo displayed in my image view a little bit squashed vertically because I'm taking up some space with this button, and I in my image view I said that I wanted to scale the X and Y to fit the image view, and of course you could do something different there if you want. So that's the basics of taking a photo. Now there are a few issues surrounding this, and in fact this code apparently, so I've read, doesn't work on the HTC Hero phone. I think it's called HTC Hero 1, and it does work on, for example, HTC Desire, because that's what my phone is and you've just seen it work. But you might want to supply alternative implementation here, and there are kind of at least two possible things you could do, at least two. One thing is you can actually get the photo from here, from the intent, but that doesn't work on Galaxy phones. So you might want to say, if photo is null, then try to get the photo via the intent. If you insist that your phone must work on your application must work on as many applications as possible. Of course, you might not care too much. And another thing you could do is you could just query the gallery at this point to get the latest image that was added to it, which is a little bit convoluted but not too bad. And I'm not going to cover that in this tutorial. And this, as I say, this is a solution that Google gives you themselves, and this, I believe, works on pretty much every phone except for the odd one here and there, perhaps even just one. So if you do want to investigate the issues further yourself and provide alternative ways of getting the image in case this fails, then I'm going to attach some text to this lecture, this tutorial, with a list of links that I took a look at to investigate this whole business. And personally, I really don't like trying to fix bugs for a platform that I don't have access to, and I don't have an HTC Hero 1, so I'm going to say, well, I don't care about it at this point, especially since I'm not planning to make my living from this application. But if you do care about it, then I'll give you a whole bunch of links that you can check out to provide alternative implementations if you really care a lot yourself. And by the way, what I'm going to do next, but I'll do it outside of this tutorial, is I'm going to go back to my Note Squirrel application, and I'm going to integrate this code into it. And in fact, I'm going to save the image file location, probably in a preference, so that I can set this image every time when the application starts up. And if this image isn't there, I'll set the default image in my application. But I'll leave that as an exercise to you if you want to have a go at that yourself. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial, and until next time, happy coding.